I made over $300,000 in a single year as a project manager. I have friends who are in cybersecurity making less than half that, working twice the hours. Most career advice comparing these two jobs has the math completely backwards. And if you pick the wrong one for the wrong reasons, you can lose 2 or 3 years of your life before you even realize it. Now, if you're interested in becoming a project manager, learning how real IT projects are run, and building actual project management experience, then why not join us inside the Eddy system on School? It's a practical space for people who want to stop just watching project manager content and actually start practicing. There's a community tab for conversations, networking, and real PMO activity, a calendar tab with live phase gate sessions every Monday and Thursday, and a classroom filled with training, PM tools, and resources to land a job. There's also a simulation platform where students pick realistic IT projects, make decisions, create deliverables, and move their projects forward. On the screen, there's a link, or you can simply click the link in the description of this video and we'll see you inside. Let me give you the honest comparison that nobody else is going to give you. But first, if you don't know me, I've been an IT project manager for over 8+ years. I've run projects remotely from Mexico, from Colombia, from Peru, from Argentina, and I've helped over 100 people with no real PM experience break into this field and land actual jobs. Here's why that matters for this comparison. A lot of the projects I've run sit right next to cybersecurity work. Things like identity and access project, network builds, audit and compliance work, tool rollouts that the security team owns. So I've watched cybersecurity people up close for years. I've seen what their week actually looks like, how they get hired, how they get paid, and how they burn out. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a cybersecurity expert myself, but I've spent enough time around both worlds to give you a comparison that's actually grounded. Not the surface level career coach version stuff that you've probably already seen. I'm going to give you the real deal here in this video. So here's the situation that most people watching this are actually in. You're somewhere between 30 and 45. You're working in some kind of an operations role. Maybe you're a coordinator or an analyst. Maybe you're in customer success or admin work. You're decent at your job. You've been doing it for a while, and you've slowly started to realize that the path forward in your current role isn't going where you want it to go. So you start looking around. 2 careers come up, project management and cybersecurity, and both look like real options. Both seem to pay well. Both seem to have a path for people without a traditional technical background, and both have an enormous amount of content telling you why they are the right choice. That's where the trouble starts, because the people telling you to pick cybersecurity have usually never managed a real project, and the people telling you to pick project management have usually never sat next to a security analyst at 11 p.m. during an incident. So the comparison you're getting are mostly surface level. Salary numbers pulled from job boards, demand projections from LinkedIn posts, bullet point lists that don't capture what either job actually feels like to do every day. And the cost of getting this decision wrong is actually pretty real. If you pick the wrong path, you can spend a year or 2 studying the wrong things, paying for the wrong certifications, building the wrong portfolio, and end up farther behind than when you started. This video is going to fix that. I'm going to take you through 7 dimensions that actually matter when you're choosing between these 2 careers. So by the end, you should know which one fits you, the version of you that exists today, not the version of you that you wish existed. Here's the thing most people get wrong about this comparison. They treat it like a coin flip between 2 equally good paths, project management or cybersecurity. Which one is better? That framing is actually broken from the start, because for most people watching this, people in their 30s and 40s with bills and families with limited runway to make a career change, these 2 careers are not equally accessible. One of them lets you use a lot of these skills that you've already built. The other one asks you to build a brand new technical foundation from scratch. That difference alone changes the math for a lot of people. And there's a second piece people miss. Even if both paths were equally accessible, they actually don't lead to the same kind of life. A senior PM and a senior cybersecurity engineer don't think alike, don't spend their days in the same way, and they don't get rewarded for the same things. So the real question isn't, hey, which one is better? It's actually which one is built for the person you actually are and the kind of week you actually want to have. Here's the frame I use. Before anything else, you have to answer 2 questions honestly. Number 1, how comfortable are you being responsible for things that fully depend on other people? Project management is the work of getting other people to deliver. If you hate dealing with people, this job will eat you alive, no matter what the salary looks like. Number two, how comfortable are you sitting inside deep technical detail for hours at a time? Cybersecurity at the working level is quite dense. It's logs, it's queries, it's documentation that wasn't written for human beings. If you don't enjoy that kind of focus, you're gonna fight your job every day, no matter how exciting the field sounds from the outside. Most of the 7 dimensions that I'm going to walk you through today are downstream of these two questions. So let's start with the question that most career changers care about. How long until you can land your first real job in each field? So for project management, if you're already in operations or coordinator or analyst type work, you're realistically looking at 6 to 12 months of focused effort to become hireable. Not because PM is easy, but because most of what you need to demonstrate is already buried inside the work that you're doing today. You just have to learn how to package it correctly, talk about it in the way that hiring managers actually want to hear about it, and actually run a couple of small projects that you can point to in interviews. For cybersecurity, the realistic timeline is actually 18 to 36 months minimum. Not because cyber is harder in some abstract way, but because the foundation you have to build is much wider. You need networking fundamentals, operating system basics, scripting knowledge, and only after all of that can you start touching the actual security material. Most career changers I know who broke into cybersecurity went through Network Plus and Security Plus, then a Cloud Cert, plus 69 months of home lab work just to get their first SOC analyst interview. If your runway is short, that gap matters more than anything else on this list. Now let's talk about what each job actually feels like to do on a day-to-day basis. A typical Tuesday as an IT PM looks kind of like this. You scan your inbox for any fires, you run a stand-up at 9 a.m., a stakeholder calls at 10 o'clock wanting to change the scope of your project, you spend an hour deciding how to handle it, you eat lunch while writing a status email, the afternoon is spent with a couple of vendor meeting calls, and half an hour to update your project plan. You answer 40 messages across the day, and by 6 p.m. you've made roughly 10 different decisions that affect other people's work. A typical Tuesday for a SOC analyst looks completely different. You log into your security tools, you pick up the alerts in your queue, you spend 3 hours investigating one suspicious login event, checking logs, running queries, building a timeline, you write up your findings, and then you hand it off to the next shift or escalate it to a senior engineer. Lunch is usually alone with your laptop. The afternoon is more of the same. See, PM is constant context switching, constant communication, constant ambiguity. Cyber is deep focus, narrow scope, repeatable structure. So if you read those two descriptions and one of them lit up for you while the other one made you kind of made your shoulders tense a little bit, then pay attention to that, because that's what you're going to get in the role itself. Now, the technical question, how much do you actually need to know? A lot of people assume that PM means no tech and cyber means a lot of tech. That's actually not quite right. For project manager, especially in IT, you need what I'd call translation level technical depth. You need to understand what a system is, what an API is, what a database is, what it means to deploy something. Enough that when an engineer explains a problem, you can ask the right next question. You don't need to know how to write code. You don't need to know how to configure systems. For cybersecurity, you need execution level technical depth. You need to actually run queries against logs, read network traffic, configure security tools, write scripts. Understanding operating systems at a level most people never touch. The gap between those two is larger than people realize. Translation level knowledge can be learned in months. Execution level takes years. So if you genuinely enjoy sitting with technical detail, building and debugging and taking things apart, cybersecurity is a real fit. But if you don't, then that gap will quietly eat you alive. Now, this point matters more than people give it credit for. Project management is a job where you have to enjoy or at least tolerate 3 specific things: conflict, visibility, and being held accountable for things that you don't fully control. If those 3 make your stomach drop just reading them, PM is going to be very hard for you. The role requires showing up in front of stakeholders, holding the line under pressure, and sometimes absorbing blame when projects struggle, even when the cause is upstream of you. Cybersecurity is closer to the opposite shape. You have to enjoy quiet, methodological, repetitive work. You have to be okay being invisible until something goes wrong, and then often blamed when it does. You have to like patterns more than people. These aren't introvert versus extrovert cliches. They're real predictors. The wrong fit here is what will burn most career changes out by year 2. Now, this next point is where the difference between PM and cybersecurity gets concrete. A PM portfolio is mostly translation and storytelling. You need a few real or simulated projects that you can walk through a hiring manager with, a charter, a stakeholder map, a status report, a raid log, and these stories that go with them. The decisions you made, the escalations you handled, the scope creep you managed. Most of this can be built from work that you're already doing today in your current role. A cybersecurity portfolio is about demonstration. Hiring managers want to see you've done the work. Try Hack Me or Hack the Box write-ups, home lab projects, GitHub repos with scripts, and certifications as gatekeepers. At minimum, a security plus. Often more certificates are needed because without those, your resume doesn't get screened. PM rewards good storytelling. Cyber rewards visible proof. Both are buildable, but they cost different amounts of time and money to build them. Now, point number 6, this is the one that most people misunderstand. Online, you'll see cybersecurity pays more, repeated everywhere. The numbers don't actually support that for most career changers. At the entry level, both careers land in roughly the same range, $60,000 to $80,000, depending on the city and industry. In the middle of your career, also similar, $90,000 to $130,000. The path starts to diverge at the senior end. A senior IT PM, especially one who moves into program management or contracting, can clear $200,000 without a leadership title. A senior cybersecurity engineer who stays as an individual contributor usually plateaus much earlier, unless they move into architecture or management. For most people, the more reliable six-figure path is absolutely project management, especially if you're open to contracting. Now, the last and final point, the recommendation that I have for you guys, for most career changers I talk to, people in operations, coordinators, analysts, or support work, somewhere between the ages of 30 and 45, project management is absolutely the better path for 5 reasons. You can use the skills that you already have. The timeline is half that of a cyber PM or a cybersecurity analyst. The technical lift is months, not years. The portfolio is buildable inside your current role, and the salary trajectory at the senior end is much stronger for a PM. So you should pick cybersecurity if a specific profile applies to you. You genuinely enjoyed the deep technical work. You have 18 to 36 months of runway to build the foundation, and you'd rather solve hard problems alone than negotiate with people. And you're okay being invisible until something goes wrong. If that fits you, perfect. Cyber is a good fit for you. But if it doesn't, it's going to burn you out by a year or two, maybe in just 6 to 8 months. Quick story for you guys. A guy reached out to me last year. He was 38 years old. He was working in retail operations for about a decade, trying to decide between PM and cybersecurity. He'd already paid for a Security Plus Prep Corp, and we walked through the same question that you guys just heard in this video. He realized that he hated the idea of sitting alone with logs for hours. He canceled the course. He ended up building a PM portfolio out of the work that he was already doing and actually landed a project coordinator role 9 months later. That's the cost of the wrong pick. He almost spent 2 years studying for a job that didn't fit him. Now, I want to leave you guys with 2 questions to decide this for yourself. Are you comfortable being responsible for things that depend on other people? Are you comfortable sitting inside deep technical detail for hours at a time? So be honest with yourself, answer that question. The path becomes very clear if you do that. So if you want help building the PM version of this, turning the work that you're already doing into a portfolio that actually gets you hired, I have a link in the description below to my live PMO where you can gain real hands-on IT project management experience. Also drop a comment in the comments below. Which path are you kind of leaning towards? I will read all of your comments and possibly reply to them as well. See you on the next one.